Hello and welcome back. In this Black Excellist presentation, we will highlight Mary Ellen Pleasant, entrepreneur, civil rights activist.
Welcome to blackexcellist.com, the site where we share Black excellence, opulence, and affluence. Our mission is to inspire you as we enlighten you.
Mary Ellen Pleasant lived her life between the lines of legitimacy and infamy, servitude and self-invention. A former slave and domestic servant, Pleasant became a civil rights activist and entrepreneur who used her fortune to further the abolitionist movement. She worked on the Underground Railroad in several states, including California during the Gold Rush, and won significant civil rights in the courts, earning the name Mother of Civil Rights in California. Yet her life was shrouded in mystery, and she would incredibly become a millionaire. In this original Black Excellist presentation, we will highlight the life of Mary Ellen Pleasant. So without further ado, let's get started. Mary Ellen Pleasant altered and embellished her own story in several memoirs to offset the criticisms levied against her toward the end of her life, making it difficult to separate fact from fiction. But by her own account, she was born Mary Ellen Williams on August 19, 1814, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to an African-American mother from Louisiana and Louis Alexander, a well-educated merchant from the Sandwich Islands. As a young girl, Pleasant was sent to live with the Hussies, a Quaker family on the island of Nantucket, Massachusetts, where she worked as a clerk at the family store. There she learned the fundamentals of running a prosperous business from Grandma Mary Hussey and witnessed the models of entrepreneurship in Nantucket's Black community. Although she could not read or write, Mary became smart and witty and grew to love her Quaker guardians, and the Hussies grew to love her too. As was the case with many Quakers, the Hussies were deeply involved in the abolitionist movement. Through Mary Hussey's granddaughter, Phoebe Gardner, Mary was later initiated into the circle of the island's anti-slavery society, making the acquaintance of Anna Gardner, teacher of Black children and an ardent abolitionist. In the 1840s, the Hussies helped the talented young Mary become a tailor's assistant in Boston, where she soon met and married James Smith, a wealthy mulatto contractor and merchant from Cuba. After they married, Mary Smith became involved in the Boston abolitionist movement, where the leaders included William Lloyd Garrison, Wendell Phillips, and Maria Weston Chapman. James passed for white and served as a contributor to Garrison's abolitionist paper, The Liberator, and as a rescuer on the Underground Railroad, a series of homes and volunteers who helped slaves escape to freedom. Soon, both Smiths were assisting fugitives find their way to freedom by various routes to Canada, Nova Scotia, and Mexico. James, however, died in 1848, leaving his young wife Mary a significant inheritance worth $45,000. Her late husband instructed his young wife to apply this money toward the abolitionist cause. Mary soon began a partnership with John James Pleasant, a former slave who had worked for James Smith as an overseer. The two continued Smith's abolitionist work for years afterward, with Mary disguising herself as a jockey so that she can sneak onto plantations and help slaves escape. Mary soon became a much-hunted slave rescuer, and increasing attention from slavers forced a move to New Orleans. When she was hunted again for her abolitionist work there, Mary fled to California. In 1848, the California Gold Rush began, and word soon spread that even Blacks were free to seek their fortune on the West Coast. Pleasant heeded the call. Mary Ellen moved to San Francisco in 1852 and found work as a cook and domestic worker, invisible and unimportant once again. She shrewdly eavesdropped on the wealthy people she served, and using the information to become a skilled investor. She leveraged the remaining portion of her inheritance and as well as her small earnings from her job into the stock and money markets. It's quite possible that the job she had as a domestic were a cover that she was using because she clearly made her money from investments. She also lent money to miners and other businessmen at 10% interest. Pleasant gained many insights from rich businessmen at the dinners over which she presided and became a skilled investor. Pleasant friendships and secret relationships with several prominent men helped build her financial confidence, as they would help her with financial planning. She launched a series of businesses catering to the gold rush boom, beginning with a string of laundries in the 1850s and diversifying to boarding houses in the 1860s, property investments, matchmaking, and mining enterprises. Pleasant became a philanthropist, using her money to bring escaped slaves to San Francisco and get them started in new homes and jobs. She came to the aid of free blacks who had been enslaved illegally in California, a free state since 1850, by hiding them in her home or in the homes of wealthy whites. Pleasant was also an ardent abolitionist, essentially establishing California's Underground Railroad. Pleasant often came to the aid of young women, both black and white, who were exploited and preyed upon by opportunists in the rough climate of frontier San Francisco. Pleasant also claimed that she provided financial assistance to abolitionist John Brown for his raid on the U.S. arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia in 1859. Her portfolio grew to include shares in businesses that ranged from dairies and laundries to Wells Fargo Bank. She owned restaurants and boarding houses, which locals whispered were actually brothels. In the 1890 census, she stated that she was a capitalist by profession. The rest of Pleasant's life was a zigzag of fortune and power, infamy and blame. She formed a decades-long business partnership, possibly romantic, with a wealthy white Scotsman named Thomas Bell. After his death, it turned out that much of Pleasant's portfolio, including the mansion she designed and had built, were held in Bell's name. Historians believe that the pair used his name in many of the business dealings to facilitate what surely would have been more difficult for a woman, and especially for a black woman. Bell's widow sued Pleasant and won control of the Bell estate. In an instant, Pleasant's fortune was diminished. Mary Ellen Pleasant died in 1904. By the end of her life, she had become a famous figure in San Francisco, whom the local newspapers referred to as Mammy Pleasant. One of the reasons that Pleasant's story is not told in U.S. history lessons is because a lot of the activities that she was involved in were either controversial or secret. Her legacy is certainly not pure, and she doesn't fit the mold of the selfless freedom fighter or heroine. However, what is clear from many sources is that Mary Ellen Pleasant was a very shrewd woman who rose from modest circumstances to a position of significant impact in San Francisco society. Also well established in history memos and artifacts is her active support of important civil rights causes. For those reasons alone, Mary Ellen Pleasant's story must be told.
We appreciate the fact that you stayed with us until the end. Thank you for spending time with us, and don't forget to like this video. Also, make sure you subscribe so that you never miss a video. Bye for now. We will see you tomorrow.